we're in a particular time. I'm gonna need you to work on your Clarence Thomas impersonation for our next Foolishness Friday Live. I
Okay.
feel like we have a Clarence Thomas, and it don't matter. I mean, there's some voice out there. You could do him however you
Yeah,
want.
you might be able to get him at cost by that time, because if he's looking for work.
Well, you think they're gonna impeach him?
No, not at all. Not at
Exactly.
all.
So what are you talking about?
But
Yeah.
I'm saying,
So
so the boycott thing. I have an opinion. I don't like that word too.
okay.
That's a new one for me. I haven't heard that before. So I'm gonna steal that. But
I didn't make it up. So
okay, yeah.
you can have
It
it.
has to. It has. So they're never comfortable. And I saw this sentiment echoed a couple places. Somebody's going to feel pain. It's going to hurt for somebody. And that's just part of it. And when we look at these stories about through history about a time when we weren't around, we can't relate to the pain that the people went through, only through the story. So it was a lot of hurt when you're going through it. And I think where we're at now, we're going to hurt one way or the other. And if we don't do something, everybody's going to hurt all the time. So, like,
Listen.
be it Nashville.
You are spot on. I was thinking about, when Medgar Evers made a decision while he was selling insurance to start registering people to vote, because what good is it that people have insurance and no rights? I'm sure he knew his life was on the line. I played this. This is the week that Martin Luther King was murdered, on this April 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the speech the night before, you could hear in his voice that he knew something was going to happen, and he got up anyway, and he got out there anyway. At some point, yes, I'm not saying everyone should put their lives on the line or whatever, but if you really about and you live somewhere, like, it's one thing to have no stake in it, but every day you're under assault, really. Whether you don't know whether your water's going to be moved, these motherfuckers coming in, determining what your children can read and not read, whether you have rights reproductively. They just snatched you. You posted this on your Twitter page that this was a couple that had their children removed from their house because they decided to have a home birth, and the child ended up with jaundice. They took the child.
Yeah. Out the house. CPS. Out the house.
From the mother, that just because they made a decision that, every day something, could go wrong with a child. Like, you could just come in and take people's kids now. Like, it's become a thing now that is untenable. And sitting back and just talking about, well, this is the way things have always been, and there's nothing I can do, is unacceptable.
Yeah. And I think from a financial, we a lot of us, we hear and we have researched the solutions. But I think a lot of us, and I'll throw myself in there, a lot of it, we're scared of what it takes, because what it takes is something that we can't relate to. Specifically talking about a financial boycott, right? We collectively, if we could get to a place where we picked one industry, one establishment, one business, one owner, and literally drove them out of business. That is the only language that is understood. Literally drive them out of business. The powers that be, the whatever, however you want to phrase it or frame it, the structure, they only understand one language, and that is the financial language of money. And for us to be that $1 trillion consumer base, like, we literally are holding the power in our pockets.
That's all I've been saying for the last 8 years, and I'm not so tired that I won't keep saying it. But you are absolutely right.
Keep
It's
saying
just
it. It'll
too
register.
much. It's too much power there to sit there and talk about. They got too much. No, they have none of the power, which is why they are controlling every lever that they can pull, because they know that it's done. It's over.
And it's layers. Over. It's multifaceted.
Yes.
It is voting. It is local voting. It's running. It's spending. It's writing letters. It's everything. Like, we'll get into these arguments where it's like, I'm not gonna vote if they don't take, if they don't get my tangibles, or just voted as no, they take it for granted. Okay, yes, Sure. That's one layer of what needs to be done collectively to affect change. There, and I'll say this, and whoever's listening, you can take it how you want it. They're not scared of us. They're not. So until they are, and in a way, and I'm talking financial, I'm talking academically, I'm talking legislatively, policy-wise, until they fear the repercussion of playing with us in our face, nothing's going to change.
Facts. All of that. Yes. I think
and I'm not even talking scare as
no,
violence.
No. And the fear that many people have, yes, the fear in the South is violence, because these folk have a history.
Right.
A track record.
But
for
isn't
violence.
that ironic too? Isn't that even ironic? I watched the video from the expulsion where the guy was like, well, what did you mean by no justice, no peace? They're so quick to do that.
Gaslighting.
Their number one move is violence, but the moment you try to set foot and stand 10 toes, it's like, what you mean by that? Was you inciting?
Was that a threat?
You said that? Was that a threat?
You know what's crazy? The Confederate Heritage Month that's happening in Mississippi, that was a whole war waged against the country, because you ain't want to give up, owning human beings. You waged a war against your own country, and then you want to celebrate that because you lost too, by the way. We're living in some strange times. I brought up Clarence Thomas because he failed to disclose luxury vacations for 20 years. He's been since 2004. He stopped filing any kind. You're supposed to listen. I was a journalist for 16 years. I was told, like, when they handed me my manual, that you can't take gifts. If a source invites you to lunch, you cannot accept that. To the point I was invited to like Jack the Rapper and stuff, hotels, this and that. And I was like, I have to pay for it. I can't accept it. Mm-hmm. I'll show up, but you can't pay for it, because it's there's a there's a fine line
between you showing bias in your future works and all of that. So he says,
it's natural too, because if you put me up at the luxury hotel in front,
I'm gonna talk good about your ass.
I absolutely am, and I would feel very gracious and grateful. So at the end of the day, it's like, if there's a line, you're a sitting Supreme Court justice, and you didn't think you needed to disclose, and he knew better. But he's married to a horrible person too, so they're in it together. But so he failed to disclose all of these luxury super yacht trips, private planes, all of this travel and stuff, and he didn't know that it was unethical. So he released this statement today. Did you see it?
Yeah. He said, at the time when he was coming up, they said you ain't really got to tell everything. So some of the stuff I kept to myself. That's basically what he said.
Well, he said he sought guidance from my colleagues. Who was it? The person that's dead? Who was it? Scalia? You and others? So that means they were doing it too. That means they're all Alito. We got to look at all of them, right? Because he said, I sought guidance from my colleagues, and it was advised this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends that who did not have business before the court. How do you know who has business before the court? How do you know who's funding the business?
How you know who's not tied into business before the court?
So he released a statement. Harlan and Kathy Crow are among our dearest friends, and we have been friends for over 25 years. First of all, it is a grammatical error. Anyway, as friends, I'm like sitting here editing. As friends do, we have joined them on a number of family trips during the more than quarter century we have known them. Early in my tenure at the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary, and I was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable. I have endeavored to follow that counsel throughout my tenure. I bet you did, and have always sought to comply with the disclosure guidelines. These guidelines are now being changed as the committee of the Judicial Conference responsible for financial disclosure for the entire federal judiciary just this past month and announced new guidance. And it is, of course, my intent to follow this guidance in the future. He should be impeached.
And now they're figuring out, they're trying to decide whether or not some sort of ethics oversight committee needs to be put in place. I'm like, that's so reactionary. What do you mean if it should be? How is it that the top judges of the land don't have some type of ethics advisory board put in place? These guys, their whole existence is about casting judgment.
You know what, when I was reading that, I thought this country is a dumpster fire of hypocrisy.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
now that they're like black folk in these positions, right? It's like we're getting to see it's been the game all along. They've been doing this collusionary, this all of this kind of backdoor dealing all along. It's always been that way. And now we're getting to see that this country is a dumpster fire. So there's that.